Hello and welcome to another episode of the Distributed Republic webcast. So our webcast is all about exploring the impact of decentralization, Web3, the Metaverse and AI on our social, economic and political systems. And the reason that we want to be able to do that is to make sure that we're ensuring that people, communities that can benefit the most from the inception of new technologies have access to the education, resources and expertise to thrive in a digital world. And we want to make sure that we are removing some of those gates that stop people being able to participate using digital technology. So if you haven't joined us before, we have a discussion format for this podcast. I have my fantastic guest, Jesse, here today, and we're going to be delving into the world of AI. But the whole point is we're going to go through a discussion bit. We're going to do our best to minimize jargon, and we're going to try and keep our answers in a way that's kind of quite short, quite sweet. We don't want to necessarily go into a huge amount of technical detail, but in order to make sure that it's accessible and that everybody can be able to participate in understanding what's going on. However, we're talking about a subject where there is lots of terminology, there is lots of coined terms, and it can be difficult to avoid them entirely. So if you want to go to www.standstore/Jamie Bykov-Brett, we have an AI terminology glossary that's been created by our friends at Cybergear, and you can download it. So if you're hearing terms and you're like, what on earth does that mean? Go and check it out. You'll find it in the terminology guide as well, but we'll do our best to avoid it where we can. And please add any questions in the comments that we've got. So if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook or YouTube, add it to the comments. We'll do our best to answer them at the end. The whole point of this as well, we've got probably about a minute delay. So if you're trying to add in a question just before the end of the show, make sure you give yourself at least a minute to be able to do so, because that's how long it will take for you to have that answer answered. So into the real crux of today's webcast, which is preparing your business for the age of AI. And I have the fantastic Jesse from Rapid Innovation here today. And before I ask you to introduce yourself, Jesse, I just want to say happy birthday.
Oh my gosh. Who told you that? It's supposed to be a secret.
I have my sources. So from all of your team at Rapid, they asked me to give you a happy birthday, and from us at the webcast as well. But happy birthday.
Thank you.
So did you want to do a bit of an introduction into yourself, what you do, and the expertise in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I would say probably for the last, we'll say 8 years, I've been working mostly with entrepreneurs in the service sector, specifically software development and MVP and POC development for people. Got into the blockchain space a long time ago now, 2011, and quit my day job in 2014. Built Rapid Innovation actually on the foundation of decentralized technology and innovation, helping people basically build products and try to figure out how to conform what they were currently doing into a decentralized world. And then more recently, let's say 2 years ago or so, really started tackling the next vertical in Web3, at least according to me, which is AI and machine learning. Also have some experience with AR and VR, and are working on building capacity in IoT, because I kind of see those as the four verticals of Web3. The next internet will be built on decentralized technology, AI, machine learning, AR, VR, and IoT. And so, and so Rapid Innovation is just we've got about 300 people on the team, and we help people build stuff. So I think that's what, at least in my opinion, why I'm an expert.
Fantastic. I think it's really interesting mentioning, obviously, as a community, the reason that I talk about bringing these things together and having them not as just separate entities when we talk about decentralization, AI, Web3, is because these technologies have actually been around for quite a long time, but they've never worked in a way that's in conjunction with each other. And we have kind of a bit of a digital convergence at the moment, which is underpinning. They all have a connection and underpin each other, which is really, really interesting. And hopefully something we'll explore a bit in this episode. So I'm going to jump into our first question, which is, what are the key considerations for businesses looking to integrate AI into their operations?
What are the key considerations? I mean, it kind of. So I'm going to answer this question actually in a little bit of an odd way. So number one, like AI has been around for a long time, right? Like a really, really long time. But I would say that it's just become useful in the last couple of years, and it's just become really popular, or at least known about, mainstream, whatever you want to think about it, like very recently in the last 6 months. And so there's that piece. But the other side of that is that it is changing like really, really quickly, like really, really quickly. And it seems to be the introduction of transformers, whatever that was, several years ago, 2 years ago, or the transformer architecture for AI, I think just pushed it into this crazy world where we're seeing, DALL-E and GPT and things along those lines. And so, like, number one, I think just the first consideration is realizing like it's coming, whether or not you want it to or not. I've talked to a ton of people who are like, no, like, if I bury my head in the sand, then GPT is not going to take my job. Honestly, man, like there's a big chunk of my job, that I do running a company that I think I'm going to be able to delegate to an AI at some point in the very, very near future. There's already massive parts of my job that I delegate to, like I augment myself through AI. And so, I mean, that's number one. Like it's going to affect you whether or not you want it to affect you or not. And then number two, you should really understand what the capabilities are of AI so you know how it's going to affect you. Because I think like with decentralization, a lot of businesses, I think, just kind of have their head in the sand. Like they don't know what's going to happen to them. And I believe that the same thing is going to happen with AI and machine learning. It's, it's the internet in 2000 and, the year 2000, 1995. Like, oh, this isn't gonna affect my newspaper company or my marketing company, and so, just learn from the past and realize that number one, like if you have a business that's in content creation, like you really should have your eyes open right now, because that's going to drastically change over the course of the next, we'll say, 2 years. And if you're not on top of it and you don't know how to integrate what you do into that new world, you're going to become obsolete.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a few bits that I want to pull out from there that I find really interesting. I remember looking at news articles of, I was probably quite young at the time to be able to see. I think we're talking 2000 where it goes, the internet's just going to be a passing fad. It's this whole kind of idea of, well, if somebody told you that the next evolution of the internet was coming now, or if somebody told you what the internet would become, before it became this tool that we spend 8 hours on a day, all of our businesses are built around it, would you do more to be able to go and participate in it or get involved in it? And if the answer to that is yes, then with these emerging technologies, your businesses have to be thinking in exactly the same way. And it's interesting when you were saying about content creation as well, because I remember walking around a Bloomberg tour, maybe about 9 years ago, where they were like, a third of our articles are wrote by AI. And one of the reasons that we do that is because 92% of stock is traded by AIs. So we want to be able to actually have it so there's some synergy there, because it's actually easier to explain to an AI that's making trades on the stock exchange if we put our articles and they're wrote in what I would like to coin as AI English. It's a specific kind of way of writing. You notice it as you come through, like when we're all working on ChatGPT. You notice the fact that there's a different way that AI articulates things. So connecting those things together, and it really changes the way that businesses can operate. And thinking about the wider potential of it as well, we'll look at some of the extra considerations that are coming up around legal and regulatory, but it really does shift the whole economic factors of what we've got here, because we have to not just evolve our workplaces, but our economic models to be able to accommodate the fact that there is going to be a real difference in the workforce and how we participate. Which leads me nicely onto my next question, which is, how can businesses upskill their workforce for working with AI systems?
I think at a very high level, it boils down to understanding prompt engineering, because this is like the AI done correctly augments human creativity and the human being's ability to be productive, right? Like I look at myself. There are times when I have to do like very long, arduous tasks that, say, 5 years ago would have taken a long time to get done, that I now get done in 15 seconds because I've got access to, like text prediction transformers that go and like create things for me if I'm willing to take the time and put the creativity into it. And so, I mean, I think that if I look at my team, right, I've got a ton of engineers, and engineers are not going to be replaced, right? They're still going to be working at building applications, writing code, being creative 5 years from now. But their jobs are going to look completely different than what they look like today, because and you can see it. I mean, if you look at GitHub Copilot or what's the other one that I was playing around with, Codex, I think. These models actually act as like junior engineers writing code for you, and then all you have to do is you have to understand how this machine thinks and be able to give it the right inputs in order to do stuff. And so with my whole team, we've had this focus on like understand what prompt engineering looks like for your position. If you're a content creator, this is what prompt engineering looks like. If you create YouTube videos, this is what prompt engineering looks like. If you write code, this is what it looks like. If you run DevOps, this is what it looks like. Because I think that the most successful companies are going to embrace this technology and start getting their workforce to a place where they understand how to leverage it and how to make themselves more useful, as they're using it. And so I think that's my high level answer. I think there's more specifics if you wanted to get into details, but
definitely it's a whole new world. And I think there's I've spoken about it quite a few times on this webcast, the idea that we actually have we can't have an industrial mindset for a digital workforce. Like, we have to learn how to be able to work within the digital tools and how we value digital tools. I'll give an example. I was talking to someone the other day where I was talking about using AI to write articles, and like, oh, don't tell me that. I want to think that you write them all and spend a lot. It's like, I do. It's my ideas. It's, I've asked it to structure it in a way, but all I've done is gone, hey, I want you to be able to write an article based on this is what I want to say. And so as someone who's dyslexic, being able to leverage a tool in that way is really meaningful. And it means, yes, we can generate more content. We can generate more things more quickly. And if you're thinking about how people can adapt that in the workforce, if we're talking about upping productivity, or if we're talking about the opportunity to have something supplement, potentially equalize your position in the workforce, there's amazing ways to use AI as an equalizer, as an equitable system, to make sure that maybe people who wouldn't have been able to participate in the same way in the past are able to participate more meaningfully using AI as an assistant to be able to support, which opens up your workforce to brand new talent pools, people that you might not have considered before. And I really like what you were saying around understanding AI as an entity as well. You not only AI is trying to understand how you think, but you also need to understand how an AI thinks, because you're going to get the best outcomes and the best results from an AI if you know how to talk in a language that makes sense to it. So I think it was some really, really good points on that bit. And it kind of leads me very nicely onto my next question, which is, at this point, is there any legal or regulatory considerations that businesses should consider when using AI?
I mean, it's all coming down the pipeline. Like, there's litigation right now around DALL-E that I think is fascinating, specifically like copyright litigation that's going through, because they took all of these images and they trained an AI and said, hey, go look at all these images and then come up with completely unique, novel, images, via prompts. Well, the problem is they used all of those images, and a lot of those images that they used, of the whatever it was, 24 terabytes of reference images, like a lot of those were copyrighted. And so like there's going to be some interesting things that need to just shake out in the general legal system. I don't think that much of that is going to impact us on a micro level right now. Like, the litigation will happen a little bit higher up, and then it will, I think regulations and things like that will get passed down to companies that are utilizing AI. And so I don't know that I'd be really, really concerned about it, but there's just interesting implications, right? Because we're breaking all of our legacy legal systems. We're just breaking a lot of things right now, and we need to rebuild those before we really understand what like the compliance landscape looks like and the legal landscape looks like. But that's in the process of shaking out.
Yeah, I think there's some really good points I want to touch on there, particularly the DALL-E 2 one, because I think actually that raises a real big question for me in the future of work, which is, so we can build AIs based on an individual now, cognitive digital twinning. We can take people's content, we can take the way that they write, their writing style, we can take their ideas and we can put it into an AI that can create some form of interaction that's quite similar to that. And I think to myself, well, why won't businesses in the future take people's emails? They've got an employee that they were like, hey, that employee was fantastic, right? They came up with some really cool ideas. We've got all of their emails, every content they've ever done, every document they've ever created, and we can put it into an AI. And do we need to hire a new person? Because we could just basically have the person before as an AI. I think that brings in so much conversation around, what do you make money as an individual because they've got that content and they're using your AI as part of their business? Do they own everything that you do in the business, so they own that version of you to be able to go and do it? Like, there's so many additional considerations from there. And like all things, technology is faster than the regulation that's there. I always use the Edward O. Wilson quote, which we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, godlike technology. And we very rarely go and develop the wisdom that we need to wield this godlike technology. I think that's sometimes the scary bits for business as well, is going, we don't know. They're working with institutions that, if I think to British Parliament's 900 years old. It pretty much functions the same way that it did almost a millennia ago. And just before Christmas, they were interviewing an AI in the House of Lords. And I was like, this is such a stark contrast between you talking to an AI and an institution that's over like almost 1,000 years old. So I don't know if you had any additional thoughts on that. I can see a smile, so I thought I'd give you the opportunity to stay back on that.
No, dude, I think that I don't think that there's a lot that like the individual business owner really needs to like do other than just keep their eyes open, because things are going to sift their way down from the top as the regulatory system catches up. But there's going to be so many really, really weird things that end up happening with AI. The digital twin side of things is actually one I hadn't really thought about, but it's true. Like what do you do with that? And how do you regulate that? Because I can imagine people being terrified that their like value as a human being is going to get cloned by an AI, and then all of a sudden, they have no more value because this AI can create the value they were creating in the world for them.
Yeah. It's that ability to stream intelligence almost in the similar way that we stream Netflix now. That's going to be the complete game changer. And this is where I think it all comes down to, that discussion around mindset as well. Like, we can't keep that industrial mindset in a digital economy. We have to start to evolve that mindset to match up with the technological capabilities. Because quite often, the way that I look at these advancements is the whole point of technology was we were working for less time, that we could spend more time doing the things that we wanted to do. It made our lives more efficient. And if technology is actually getting to the place that it's able to do that, then fantastic. But we have to update the economic models to be able to accommodate that. We have to change the way that we think about labor and the way that we participate, because that's going to be impactful as well.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have to understand where value actually lies, right? Does value lie in writing 10,000 lines of code for a program you're trying to build? Or does the value lie in understanding how this program is going to work and being able to communicate that clearly to a machine? Like, where does the value lie? I think you could make a really, really good argument that the value doesn't lie in writing the code. It just doesn't. Like, the real value lies in the intelligence that has to sit behind that work. And right now we waste our time writing code. We waste our time putting our idea, like your example of being dyslexic, like you waste your time struggling through the creation of content. You just do. It's a waste of your time because you've already done the hard work of coming up with the idea, coming up with the real value, and now you have to go and birth that value into the world, and it's if something else can do that for us, we become more valuable. Like at the end of the day, we're adding value by taking away a bunch of meaningless stuff that human beings will not be doing in the future.
Yeah. It changes the way that we perceive intelligence. It's that whole old anecdote. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend the whole of its life thinking it's stupid. And it's that whole kind of bit of going, well, actually, that written level of English, is that as important in a digital workforce? Or is it the idea? Is it the ability to come up with the ideas and to be innovative and put that in a way that if the AI can make it more understandable to other people or save you time spell checking or formatting, we're on a winner there. Which leads on to this kind of next question, which is, what are the potential future developments in AI that businesses should be aware of?
I mean, I think it depends on how you think about that question. Like, there's a future coming where people are not going to we won't have doctors that help us with general, like our general health, right? Because we're going to be able to talk to the entire wealth of information that the entire medical field has ever created all at once, specifically trained on me because it's been paying attention to all the questions that I have, and it knows my medical history, right? So doctors as we know them today aren't going to exist. Consultants aren't going to exist. Developers aren't going to exist in the way that we see them today. And so I think that we're going to watch over the course of the next 20 years the entire landscape of humanity change drastically. Probably a more drastic change than we've seen in the last 20 years, which I think has been incredibly drastic. I mean, we all walk around with supercomputers in our pockets for the most part, and the entire world's information at our fingertips. We're about to have access to not only all of the world's information at our fingertips, but we're about to have access to the most intelligent kind of thinking that exists. I mean, the cumulative intelligence of humanity all in one spot. Like if you think that that's not going to like create a massive change to the way that like everything works, like you've got your head in the sand, because it's going to create a massive change to the way that everything works. How that all plays out, I'm not sure exactly. But I want to get ready. If you
did know how it all plays out, you'd be able to make a lot of money from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think your doctor example is fantastic, because I've been in a doctor surgery where they've gone and typed in on Google, and I was like, I could have typed it in on Google. Like, I've come to you, you're a medical professional, but they're like, hey, if I need access to resources and stuff to be able to do it, and it's fair play, you've got this wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. And going into this whole idea of once again, what the value from a business, I can see in the future, if you're talking about your KPMGs or your Accentures of the world, you just have AIs that are based on their wealth of knowledge that you can go, well, I want to be able to text my AI KPMG consultant, and they're going to come back to me with their perspective on it. Maybe I've got an APMG, all of that kind of stuff. So it can all work in a really interesting way. I'm going to move on to our last question, but just before I do, if you've got any questions that you want us to go, I can see that there's loads of comments coming through, which is fantastic. So I want to make sure that there's time to answer it. So just it's going to be difficult, but a 90-second answer on this one. How can businesses stay competitive in the age of AI?
Adapt. I mean, it's the exact same thing that happened when the Industrial Revolution happened, right? Like the way that the world worked was changing, and the people that did really well, those, okay, how can I add value to this new world? And so, for insurance agencies or for medical professionals or for developers or for whatever that happens to be, you need to look out into the future, understand this technology. And I'm not saying know it from a technical level. I'm just saying understand it, kind of understand it. And then go, okay, where do I fit into this? Like, how do I add value? How can I augment myself utilizing this technology to add value to humanity? and you will be a business that still exists if you can answer those questions.
Fantastic. And I'm really glad you mentioned the Industrial Revolution, because one of the ways that I tried to contextualize what's going on at the moment is, if you think about the agricultural revolution to the Industrial Revolution, we went from having 80% of jobs being agricultural related to within 50 years that being 46% of jobs. And if you look nowadays, it's less than 6% of jobs are agriculture related. But when we were going through that Industrial Revolution era, we created schools that educated people for the workforce. We had to do a lot of sense making. We had to evolve our economy. We had to think about all of the different ways that we were changing because of the implementation of technology, all of the things that we could do to build our world around that technology that was there. And I think people have to recognize that exact same thing is happening again, where, you know, we do have to think about how we're preparing people to take their place in a digital world, and how we can help people make sense of it, how we can help people make sense of AI, how can we help young, you know, particularly young people. If you've got an avatar in a metaverse environment and you can appear one way in a digital space and you appear differently in reality, how does that affect your sense of self and your sense of digital identity, which is whole new challenges, really.
Yeah. I'm very excited about it, but it's going to be super, super disruptive. And there's going to be the Industrial Revolution made the world a better place. It just did. Everything's better. People have more money. They have more time. They have better lives. This is going to do the same thing, but I think we're going to see the same effect. It's going to be a lot of unhappy people trying to figure out how to adapt to a changing world that is getting better, which is kind of what gives me hope. But I'm super excited for it.
Me too. Thank you for going through those questions. I have a huge amount of comments here from people. So what I'd like to do is probably say we'll do our best to answer, but we'll do it quick fire. So just one sentence answers if we can, and we'll try and get through as many as possible, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
But first of all, we'll start off with lots of happy birthday comments coming through for you as well. First question: is AI popular now because of the number of quality of data streams available to let them grow?
Yes, they basically spent more money creating better models, and they've become more useful, therefore more popular.
Fantastic. Go to Sharad on this one, just as a bit of an insight, and kind of get your thoughts on this one as well. I believe we're going to move into an economy of kindness because intelligence will become commoditized by AI. Thus, the most valuable thing you can do is be a human being. As a human being, is be kind. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yes, I think that there's some truth to
that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, it's the humanity is what's going to have value, right? It won't be what you do; it'll be who you are. And if you want to make the argument that kindness is what makes people valuable, which I think you can, then you will find that we will shift towards an economy that does look a bit like that. I haven't thought much about it, but it makes sense.
Fair enough. Teresa, any cons that you foresee for the age of AI?
I mean, there is the whole doom and like the AI takes over the world and kills all of humanity scenario that people talk about. I mean, I think that could be a con potentially.
Yeah. If Terminator has led us to believe anything, it's that's our biggest con that we have to look out for.
Exactly. No, I think there's going to be other things. There are going to be jobs that disappear. There's going to be people that creates hardships for. Those people will find new jobs and better jobs. I think they'll have happier lives. That's what happened last time. But this area of transition is going to be a con. Also, human beings, it's good for human beings to interact with human beings. We don't know what a world looks like where human beings interact with computers. And we're moving towards a world where that happens. And so there's some like psychological stuff and sociological stuff that I think could be coming down the pipeline as far as like, you know, depression, like what happens to human beings in a like a pseudo isolation and things along those lines that I thought about a fair amount, but I think that there's potential pitfalls along the way, and that being one of them, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge opportunity here when we're talking about, you know, AI therapy. You know, it's so expensive to go see a therapist. It means that, you know, you're only able to access that kind of support if you've got the money there to be able to do so. But being able to have cheap alternatives where people can get support, that's fantastic in lots of ways. But then also people are going to do with that with their friendships, they're going to do it with their workforce, to the point that it's like, well, we're going to have to reestablish what is the value of human interaction, and we're going to figure out how important it is to the conversations that we're having. Because if we're talking about interacting with someone in the metaverse or in a virtual world, we won't know if that person is real or not. We won't be able to see that, and that's going to change the way that we perceive our reality and our interactions with people.
Well, there might be whole like groups of people that just don't like other human beings, and they actually create entire like worlds for themselves to live in that where they have no interactions with other humans, and all your friends are just analogs of the kinds of people that you want to be in relationship with, and they're all going to they all pass the Turing test. You can't tell they're not human. Like that world will exist one day, and just who knows what that does to the human psyche? Who knows what that does to our ability to thrive as as like the global human culture. I just don't know.
I mean, in lots of ways, AI will give us a great sense of what it actually means to be human. We're going to have to figure that out now.
Yeah. Well, and I would say the other one that I'm a little bit nervous of is that if you go back, let's say 200 years, people were, in a sense, smarter than they are today. They had the ability to know more. They were very well read. They understood. I mean, they spoke multiple languages. Like people were just smarter. As we begin this process of augmenting our need for information through, say, the internet, people have become dumb because I don't need to know how to do stuff. I can just Google it. I think AI is going to take that to a whole new level. And so you will have the potential as a human being to basically not store any information in your own head. And we don't know what that looks like for humanity to not have to actually be self-contained, because our intelligence is going to be contained on the outside of us, through artificial intelligence, through other things along those lines. We've got a glimpse of it with Google and, and the internet. But this is going to take that to a whole new level. And so what happens to a human being when you have to contain zero, like when your intelligence is all on the outside of you? I don't know.
Would almost argue that, so I'm not sure if I would 100% agree that we're done with them before. I would go that we've got opportunities to have access to resources and learning materials that we would have never been able to. So there's an equitable aspect of it, of being able to go, hey, if some people might have been smarter because they had access to the right resources and training and education, but there was a huge section of humanity that did not have access to that and were not able to be able to work within that space. And I suppose the area that I kind of think from an AI perspective on that is that you can learn a lot from AI. I was working with ChatGPT to develop some coding where I was like, right, I think it's like this, but I need your help. Do you want to tweak it like that? That hasn't worked. We've come up with this error message. So there's an opportunity there to almost have access to expertise and resources that you would never be able to do otherwise. I'm going to finish the webcast here, but this was a super interesting conversation, Jesse. I really enjoyed speaking to you. And thank you for coming on, making the time, and all of your expertise and wisdom that you've shared with us.
Not a problem at all. Enjoyed it a lot. I'm
glad. And if anyone's interested, feel free to join our community. It's a free to join community, www.distributedrepublic.xyz, or by following us on our handle, which is just Distributed Rep. Also, at the same time, we're doing sponsorships for this webcast. So if anyone is interested in being able to see their name on the show, put it on the ticker tape, we'd love to be able to have some sponsorship come in to help us do what we're doing. And if you would have anyone at your organization who would benefit from this kind of information, let us know. Get in contact with me, and also get in contact with Rapid Innovation as well. If you're looking at being able to build products in this space, fantastic opportunity to go and discuss with them and see how you can work partner as well. But once again, Jesse, thank you so much. And I'm going to wrap up there.
Dude, not a problem. Thank you. Talk soon.
See you soon.